With you guys? Glad you're here. All that other stuff I'm supposed to say at the beginning. Hope you're having a good week. I mostly have, though I was a little disappointed yesterday. Many of you would know yesterday was Halloween, and some of you might know I was looking forward to my daughter going trick-or-treating. I talk about her every week, so if you've ever been here before, you're probably sick of these stories, but this is less about her and more about me and my disappointment. So she went trick-or-treating, and it went pretty well. She went with some kids a little older than her, and she kept up with them, and it was awesome, and I was impressed, and it was cool. And I was looking forward to getting home because she's not old enough yet that she really would understand how much of her candy I might take. And she's not old enough yet that she really has identified what her favorite candies or treats are. She just sees all of them as treats and wants all of them, but doesn't, have good taste yet in candy. So, I've got this whole thing, Whoppers, she can eat all the ones she wants. If any terrible person gave her candy corn, she can have the candy corn. That stuff's disgusting. Why would I eat it? Dots and a few others, but anything with some combination of chocolate and peanut butter, often known as Reese's Cups, those will be going to me. And she's not going to know. I don't know if she failed or if my neighbors failed, but we got one Reese's Cup in the entire stinking thing. It was miserable, and I went to bed really disappointed last night, stuck with a bunch of things like Whoppers and Dots. So, Whopper, is there an M in the word? Yeah, just Whoppers. Like the Burger King sandwich, but it's a nasty malt ball with chocolate. Those things are gross. Okay. We have been in this series called Following Jesus In, and we've been looking at different circumstances or sort of situations that you spend a lot of your time in high school. We started with family, and then we talked last week about conflict, and tonight I want to talk about relationships. And to just sort of begin approaching the subject, I want to give you a moment, and please don't get up right now, please don't get on your phone, but just with the people sitting near you, what are one or two characteristics that you really value in a friend? Talk about that with the people sitting near you. Okay, and sort of wrap up. In a few minutes, I'm going to share two myself that I think, in a few minutes I'm going to share two characteristics that I think are really valuable in a friend. But first, I just want to sort of give some more background and kind of more approach the subject a little slowly. Now, and our title tonight is Following Jesus in Our Relationships, and I might use the word relationship and friendship interchangeably, but I think what we're talking about tonight can really apply to any relationships you have with other people. So whether it's a friend, a teammate, a boyfriend, girlfriend, a classmate, a neighbor, a family member, I think most, if not all of what I'm talking about, you could apply to any of these relationships. So the word I'm probably going to use most is friend, but if you're listening and you think, no, that actually really applies to this person or that person, that's cool. I want you to think for a moment about how even though every person is unique, and we all have very different personalities, different backgrounds, different things we're interested in, and even in the context of friendship, like some of you are high extroverts, some of you are high introverts, some of you value having a lot of friends, some of you would really appreciate only having one or two close friends. Even as we're a diverse group of people, every person I've ever met, every person in the world, at some level, has a desire for connection with other humans. At some level, all of us desire at least a friend or a couple friends. And I think the way you could boil this down is there is this primal human desire to be known and to know others. And at our core, that's true of all of us. And as someone who believes in the Bible, I see this at the beginning of the story. We talked about it as a teeny bit when we talked about family a couple weeks ago. But if you look at the very beginning of the Bible, Genesis 1, God created the world and everything in it, and he created people. And then in Genesis 2, it gets into the specific story of how he created humans and the family dynamic, and he set his plan for marriage and relationships. And it talks about how he says it was not good for man to be alone, so he created woman, and he told them to go and have a family, and he gave instructions and all this. Like, God created us to be in relationship. And if you look in Genesis chapter 2, before sin ever enters the world, before there's any brokenness or pain or heartache, two things are going on. People are in relationship with one another, and people are in relationship with God. That was the intention. That was the plan. So that part of you that really cares about your friends, cares that you have friends, spends most of your waking moments thinking about the relationships with people in your life, that's a good thing. That's placed there by God. And what I want to propose to you is God made us to learn from our relationships with other people and to find our identity in our relationship with him. He made us to learn from our relationships with other people, but to find our identity in our relationship with him. And just keep that slide up for a moment as I talk about it. Friends are great to learn from. Friends are great to have fun with as well, and that's awesome. But you can learn a lot about yourself through your friends. You can honestly learn a lot about God through relationships with other people. That's kind of this whole thing. It appears throughout the scripture that we get a glimpse of what God is like through the experience of human relationships. Talks in the Bible about how Jesus is our friend, and we can get an idea of what God is like when we have a friend who's loyal to us and has our back. When I make a mistake and Lacey forgives me, it's a glimpse of what God's forgiveness is like. I can learn about God through my relationship with Lacey. Relationships are a great tool to learn from. But we weren't meant to find our identity in other people. And when I say identity, I'm talking about our sense of self-worth, our sense of value. Other people and relationships and friendships are really important, and they're good, and they should be celebrated, and they should receive a lot of attention and care. But I don't believe God ever intended us to find our identity in other people. And this is a problem because a lot of us do that. And you just think at this really basic level. Think about your best friend from first or second grade. Some of you might still be friends with them. I'm sure some of you don't even see them anymore. Some of you are probably mortified that they were your best friend. Some of you have really good friends right now. And you may still be friends with each other in 5 years. You might be friends with a couple people in 10 years. Very few of you in this room will even be in touch with more than one or two people who you're friends with now, 15 or 20 years from now. And that's okay. That's just part of growing up. That's normal. That doesn't mean anyone's wrong. But think about what a bummer. Think about what a tragedy for you that you would lose yourself while you're in high school because you're obsessed with what someone else thinks about you who won't even know you in 10 years. Think about the tragedy that some of you are becoming someone that deep down you know you don't want to be because you care so much about what a few other people think of you, a few other people who, if we gave you truth serum, you would admit they don't have their stuff together. You would admit you actually don't want to turn out like them. And you are finding your identity in what they think about you with no regard for what God says about you. Some of you are really blessed and fortunate to have really great friends, but even the best friends among us are not perfect, are not going to get it right all the time. Yet God, who made you, who knows everything about you, loves you unconditionally. And we're so quick to skip finding our identity in him and instead choose to find our identity in a few other people who at best we might have fun with but probably won't know in 10 years, and at worst are actually doing more harm than good for us. You are selling yourself short when you find your identity in what other people think about you instead of finding your identity in God. Friends are great to have fun with. Friends are great to learn from, but they're not where we were made to find our identity. And I'll just take this a step further. This really becomes a problem in dating. Some of you in this room have asked me, how old do I think you should be, or someone should be before, you never ask me how old you should be because you don't care, but you want to know hypothetically, how old do I think someone should be before they start dating? I've certainly had parents ask me this before. And as a dad, I'm going to have to face this myself down the road. But I'll tell you, I usually think that's the wrong question to start with. To me, age is secondary from the more significant issue that for most people, whether they're 13 or 17 or 35, when they begin a dating relationship, they are looking for another person to fulfill a longing and a desire in their heart that was intended for God to fill. And for most people, when they start dating, and it may not be their intent, but what ends up happening, even if this was not their intention, is they come to find their sense of worth and value and purpose and meaning in what this other person thinks about them. And this is an issue no matter how old you are. Say this to my adult friends who are single. Just getting married is not going to fix your life. If you're trying to find someone else to do what only God can do, you are setting yourself and that other person up for failure. You know, I see this with Parker, where we have things in our house and she has toys that she completely misuses. The most recent example, someone gave her a Slinky yesterday. Slinkies are not terribly complicated toys. She seems to think it's jewelry. And, you know, it's fine, but there is no way that Slinky is not going to be broken in 2 weeks. Because when we consistently misuse something the way it was not intended, eventually it's not going to work. And for most people, they are looking for a dating relationship to do something it never was intended to do, and I promise you, it never will do. It absolutely will never fulfill that thing that's off inside of you. That desire you have to be loved and to feel accepted unconditionally will never be fulfilled by another person. Other people can help us see kind of how much we need God, and people can help us, be expressions of God's love for us. But so many people put their boyfriend or girlfriend on a pedestal that really only God can fulfill. And if you're like, dude, you sound like such a prude, you see this in your own lives play out all the time. This is why so many people, starts off simple enough. As friends, you get along great. You're both attracted to one another. You start dating, and within a couple weeks of dating, you're like, I don't know, it's just weird now. I think we still like each other, but it's just so much different. Yeah, it is. Because subconsciously, because the message, the culture you've been raised in, and it's not your fault, but the message you're growing up in, is when you become close to someone, you should lose yourself in them. And that's not how we were intended to live as humans. So of course, whether it's 10 days in or 4 months in, at some point you're going to be like, I don't know, this is weird, because I still kind of like them, and I think they're great, but we fight all the time. And then you break up, and then a month later, when you've stopped expecting that person to do what only God can do, and you've just sort of viewed them as your friend, as how you should, and you can have fun, and you can learn, but it's kind of normal again. You're like, gosh, I kind of like him again. I don't know. I think we should get back together. Yeah. Hey, newsflash. That cycle is never going to work. Not because you're bad, not because they're bad, not because dating is wrong, or anything like that, but because often one or both parties are looking for the other person to do what they were never intended to do, to fill a need that only God can fill. And that can happen in friendships. That can happen when you try to define yourself by what college you get into. It can happen when you try to define yourself by a team you're on. Dating is just one of the things that many people, when they're in high school and into college and into adulthood, lose themselves in. And I just want to tell you guys, no human relationship can take the place of what God was intended to be for you. That is where we should find our identity. And anything else will always leave us coming up short. But when used properly and viewed properly, friendships are awesome and they're important. And I want to suggest 2 characteristics that are important to look for in our friends. And it's the word invitational and the word challenging. Invitational and challenging. And if you were in the high school morning sessions at summer camp, I'm going to talk about what Brendan from the Spring Hill Church talked about a little bit that morning. This might be a little familiar to you guys, but I can expound on it a little bit. And a lot of you weren't there, so this will be new. But I want to look at an interaction that we see between Jesus and one of the disciples, a guy whose name was originally Simon, and it changes to Peter. And Jesus is talking to this group of his disciples, and he's asked them, what are people saying about me? And they tell him, and he says, we'll pick up in verse 15. He says, what about you? Who do you say I am? Simon Peter answered, you are the Messiah, the Son of the living God. Jesus replied, blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for this was not revealed to you by flesh and blood, but by my Father in heaven. And I tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven. Whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. And we'll stop there. Some weird words here. I just want to explain what Jesus is expressing to this guy. He sees something in Simon, whose name changes to Peter. He believes in him. He sees his potential. And he invites him in closer. He says, I'm going to give you the keys to the kingdom. The name that he changes his name to actually means rock. And the idea is it's communicating this message that he is the rock upon which he will build his church. And his church will never fail. He is inviting Peter to be a part of something important. He's letting Peter know he believes in him. He is showing a tremendous amount of trust and encouragement to Peter. So when we say invitational, sure, it might mean literally inviting you to join, inviting you over, but I mean it in a broader sense. Someone who gives you access to them. Someone who cares about your safety. Someone who's going to show you love and grace and encouragement. An invitational friend demonstrates these positive characteristics. And as I talk about this, I mean, what I'm talking about is a friend who's got your back. A friend who you feel good when you're around. A friend who knows how to brighten your day when you need it. A friend who sees positive qualities in you even when you may not see them in yourself. A phrase that Brendan came up with that I'll share with you is think of this like your 2 a.m. friend. For the record, I think you should all be asleep at 2 a.m. no matter what you're doing. However, imagine you're in a circumstance one day and you feel like there's no one else you could call, but you know you could call this person because they've always got your back. They're always going to believe the best. They love you. That's your 2 a.m. friend. It's an invitational friend. They're bringing you in. They're encouraging you. We see Jesus do that with Peter and many of these other disciples that he interacted with. But now I want to fast forward the conversation they have. Jesus goes on to explain what's going to happen to him soon. He's letting them know, man, stuff's going to get bad really soon. And Peter kind of freaks out. He has a hard time believing it. And so, Matthew 16, verse 22. Peter took him meaning Jesus, took him aside and began to rebuke him. And just in case you know, this is like you're calling something out in a really harsh way. Like a rebuke is a really strong calling someone out. Peter took Jesus aside and began to rebuke him. Never, Lord, he said, this shall never happen to you. Jesus turned to Peter and said, get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me. You do not have in mind the concerns of God, but merely human concerns. So just a moment ago, Jesus is inviting him in, saying, I believe in you so much, I'm going to give you a new name. I'm going to use you to build my church. You are the guy. I'm going to give you the keys to the kingdom of heaven. And then just a few moments later, he's looking at him saying, get behind me, Satan. Harsh words. And a lot of us see these two things as incompatible. How can you be so encouraging in one moment and then call someone out in the next moment? But the reality is that the best of friends and the kind of friends we all need are willing to call us out if we need to be called out. The best of friends are going to challenge us even if it's inconvenient or hard to hear. A challenge friend or a challenging friend is going to bring responsibility to the relationship. They're going to say things that are going to lead to transformation and change. They're going to speak the truth even when it's difficult. Proverbs 27, verse 5 says, an open rebuke is better than hidden love. Wounds from a sincere friend are better than many kisses from an enemy. The idea here is, gosh, it's better to have a friend tell you the truth than someone who doesn't have your best interest in mind, let you think everything's okay even if it's not. Sometimes we need friends who are going to challenge us. A high invitation friend always lets you in. A high challenge friend never lets you down. Always lets you in, never lets you down. For a lot of us, this is what we're looking for and want in a friend. And again, this will look familiar if you were at camp. I just want to kind of show you what this can look like sometimes. It's been a while since I've used a whiteboard. In case you forgot, I have terrible handwriting. But the one axis going up and down, it says low invitation. Which one's this? Y-axis. Thank you. It's been a while. Low invitation, high invitation. Low challenge, high challenge. Most relationships we have with people are going to fall in one of these four quadrants. Take a high invitation but low challenge friend. I think the word that can best describe this is comfortable. And this is good. We need friends like this. I would say in general, in high school, you have the most amount of friends that fit in this quadrant probably. Because this is who we like to hang out with for the most part. They're fun, they're encouraging, they're bringing us around, they want us to feel included. This is really good. You need people like this in your life. But high invitation, low challenge friend, unlikely to tell you the truth if the truth might be hard to hear. If you're getting into some patterns and habits that could be destructive to you, they may not participate with you, but they're also not going to call you out because it's not what they do, or they don't feel right doing it, or maybe they feel like you're not that close, and that's okay. Not every friend does everything, but comfortable friends are good to have. There's some stuff lacking, though. And go to the other corner down here. High challenge, low invitation can probably best be described as stressful. Very few of you in high school are going to keep these people around. And I'm not really saying that's good or bad. I just think very few of us want to be around this. Now, someone who's high challenge, low invitation might be good to have as a captain of your team. You might want to work on a group project with them. They're going to bring out the best. But it's unlikely that over a long period of time you're going to choose to spend a lot of time with them. I think that's fine. One thing I would suggest to you, though, and I would say this is something I have to look in the mirror for sometimes, is some of us might behave like this kind of friend a lot. If you know it's in your personality to be quick to challenge, quick to call things out, make sure that you're also encouraging those people you're challenging. Make sure you are also looking for opportunities to let them know you love them. Because what I do think happens sometimes is people don't realize how stressful they are as a friend, and they have really good intentions. But if you're not balancing out the high challenge with the high invitation, you may push people away, and they may choose to stop listening to you. So consider, what kind of friend are you being to other people? Now, a low challenge, low invitation friend, I would just propose, isn't actually a friend. I don't know what they're doing. They're just someone in your class. Whatever. High invitation, high challenge. I want to suggest that this is what a true friend is. All of us need some people in our life who are both high invitation, always let us in, and high challenge, never let us down. All of us need some friends who we're going to have fun with, they're going to make us feel good, we're going to laugh, but if we're doing something out of line, they're not going to be afraid to call us on our stuff. They're not going to be afraid to tell you the truth, even if it hurts to hear the truth. Because the reality is, if you don't have some of these people in your life and have some of these people close to you, you're going to find yourself in some really tricky situations. All of us need these type of true friends who are both high invitation, high challenge, even if it's hard sometimes. Now, you may not have a lot of friends like that, and that's okay. But man, fight to have one or two. Small groups are a great opportunity for this, though I realize not everyone clicks that well with the people in their small group, and that's okay. But I will say this is one reason why we do small groups, is to create a space for you to make some of these friendships. Now, one thing I've said throughout this series is you can't control the behavior and the actions of other people. We talked about that with your family. We talked about that with navigating conflict. And I want to invite you to consider in this situation, it's one thing to say we need true friends who are high invitation, high challenge. But you have a responsibility as well to give some of your friends permission to challenge you. I mean, the reality is none of us want to be challenged by every person we know, and that's okay. I don't think you should be. But if you have someone who you see as a true friend, like you know they care about you, you know they have your best interests at heart, a real sign of maturity is for you to let them know, hey, if I'm ever doing something stupid, you've got my permission to call me on it. Don't embarrass me. Don't tell other people about it before you come to me. But if you come to me directly, I promise you, I will listen, even if it's hard to hear. I mean, that is how you develop and create true friendships. And guys, even just having one or two true friends like that through high school and after high school can change the course and the direction of your life. But you gotta work for it. You gotta go look for it. Comfortable friends are great. We should have them. But if that's all we have, some stuff's gonna be missing. Be mindful if you're being a stressful friend. And then how can we go and find and look and fight for true friends? I mentioned at the beginning that friends are a great way to learn. John 15, verse 13 says, "Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends." Jesus gave us the ultimate example of friendship, that he sacrificed himself for the sake of us, and so he calls us his friend. It's such a cool picture of true friendship. He set that example. He has set that standard. He both invites us to follow him, but challenges us to pursue what is right. And it's an invitation for all of you. And it's something to consider as you look at the kind of friend you are and the kind of friends that you're looking for. I love you guys, and I care about you. And we talk about this stuff like friendships and conflict and family, not because it's always easy, but because we want what's best for you. And I believe that the life the Bible describes is what's best for you. So I hope this has been helpful, even if maybe parts of it you didn't enjoy as much. Let me say a quick prayer, and then we'll be dismissed. God, thank you for the example of friendship that we have in Jesus, that he laid down his life so that we could be made whole, so that we could find who we were really meant to be. God, give us the maturity and the wisdom to take stock of our friendships. Give us the humility to see if we're living in that stressful quadrant. Give us the maturity to see if everyone we've surrounded ourselves with just make us comfortable and we haven't allowed anyone to challenge us. And God, if anyone thinks about this and they really feel like they don't have a true friend who is both invitational and challenging, God, would you form some friendships? Would you introduce some people to one another that can really help one another learn and be invited and be challenged all at the same time? Pray this in Jesus' name.